When are you ready to perform? I got asked this question online many months ago, and I am finally getting around to giving my answer. Drex here from DrexFactor.com, and today I'm talking about the performance world, and specifically, when are you ready to enter into it? Before we dive in, I just want to give a shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Flow Toys, Pyroterra Light Toys, LMF Props, Spinballs, and Ultrapoi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all these awesome companies and the work that they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links that I've got down in the description of this video. So I need to stick a proviso up front on this because I do not now, nor have I ever primarily made my income off of performing for a long list of reasons. But I feel a little bit guilty giving advice on this, if for no other reason than there are so many other people out there that do primarily make their living there, and I'm not one of them. All that said, I do on occasion do performances, and I do make money off of it, so I'm going to answer this question as best I can from my own perspective, and I am sure that other people out there who are in the performance world will be more than happy to leave their own feedback on this video. I'm also going to say that I'm going to split this video up into two parts because I think there's actually two answers to this question. One of which is the artist's answer, and this is the question that I think most people think they're asking when they ask this question of when am I ready to perform. They want to know, like, when they know enough stuff, or they have a good enough routine, or they are worthy enough to go up on stage and everything. And my answer in this section is probably going to surprise you, but not as much as my answer in the second section, which is there's also an entrepreneur's answer to this question. Because if you're looking to get on stage and get into performance as a career, guess what? You're starting a small business. And there are a few questions there that you need to be asking yourself in the process of this too. So starting with the artist's answer, the shortest version of this answer that I can give is that I think you're ready to perform when you're in a place where you can make the audience's experience more important than your own. So I think when a lot of people get on stage, what they're looking for is the way it makes them feel, the way it feels to be the center of attention, or to get kind of like affirmation or some degree of feeling better about themselves, of, you know, having the people around them basically give them confirmation and affirmation and telling them they did a good job, right? And that's great when you're doing it as a hobby, when it's about kind of finding something for yourself that you don't already have. And I will say straight up, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's something different that happens when you start trying to do this for money and when you start trying to do it for a career. And the core of that is that you're no longer up there to kind of get this thing for yourself. And you might get it in the course of it, and, you know, by all means, if it works out that way, that is the greatest of all possible worlds. But fundamentally, when somebody pays you to do a performance, they're paying you to essentially provide a service. You now have a job. Your job is to entertain people. It's to give them something that they're going to enjoy and that is going to take them out of whatever crazy things happen to be going on in their lives at that point. And being able to see that difference is very, very important. And I think one of those things that can become a problem in the performance world, especially for flow arts, because when people do walk into it seeing the performance as a service that is being given to them, they are more likely to do it in such a way that they compromise themselves or really, you know, kind of whatever scene they happen to be working in. You know, if there's an abundance of people that are willing to do a service for free, it becomes very, very difficult for those who do make a living at it to be able to ask a livable wage in doing so. And of course, there's a very, very deep and very, very controversial conversation to be had there in terms of how people approach pricing themselves and the effect that has on other people in their areas and everything that I am not going to get into in this video, because that is a rabbit hole down which I really, really don't enjoy going. But suffice it to say that The mentality that is really going to help you in coming into a performance scenario is being able to put yourself in that place where what is coming out of this is not necessarily what it gives you, but what you can give to the people that are going to be watching you when you're on stage. And, you know, it's good to get practice in on this. Maybe, you know, work on your act for your friends and get feedback from them. Perhaps record some video, post it to Instagram or YouTube and see what people have to say about it, and use that feedback to help you tailor your act and make it something even better that is going to be worth somebody's time. And like, I cannot emphasize this enough. Getting that feedback is not a bad thing. I know quite a lot of people who really dread getting that kind of feedback. They're kind of afraid to hear how they could be doing something better because they think that that means that they can't do it right. And I would push back on this. You know, being in the flow arts, I've gone through multiple creative careers in my life, and especially I tend to think about when I was in music as a great example of how sometimes working hard can kind of defy your expectations. Like, all of the people that I knew that just seemed like unbelievably naturally talented musicians were not the people that wound up going off and having long careers in music. More often than not, it was the people that really struggled, and I think that there's a reason for that. So if you're one of these people that kind of takes to a given thing like a fish to water and everything, and it feels easy to you, then when something pops up that is a challenge for you, this is something you're not really used to negotiating. So like, you know, you may be used to playing music and can write beautiful songs and everything, but the moment you have to start working on, you know, convincing venue owners that they should be booking you, all of a sudden it's just like, well, you know, shouldn't it be self-evident that this works? And no, the answer is it's not. And so I tend to find that it's the people that really had to work hard, even at the beginning of their journey, they get kind of acclimated to that. They expect challenges to come their way. And when those challenges do come their way, they're more comfortable kind of working through them and negotiating through them and being like, okay, here's a problem for me to solve. And that becomes a part of their experience with the art rather than something that they don't really know how to work through. So if the idea of taking that feedback feels like kind of a lot for you, then I think you maybe are not ready to be a performer, because you're going to have to take that feedback and you're going to have to let it become a gateway for you to become a better version of the performer that you can be. You know, just because you get negative feedback on something, that does not mean that you will never be good at it. It means that you got some work to do. And you should look at that work as being kind of the investment that you're making in the performer that you're eventually going to become. And that's a healthy thing. Okay, so now let's talk about the entrepreneurial side. So straight up, if you are looking to become a performer and to get paid to do it, you're starting a small business. And you're about to learn about a whole bunch of skills that you may or may not have any idea existed out there in the world. You are going to have to learn all about accounting. You're going to have to learn all about budgeting. You're going to have to learn about marketing. You're going to have to learn about human resources, especially if you are working with other performers in the course of this. And again, this is not a bad thing. These are all tools that you need to have in your toolbox in order to be a successful business person. I would say that if you're interested in getting into performance, one of those first questions that you ought to be asking yourself is, okay, how much money do I hope to be making off of this? What is an amount of money that is going to make this sustainable for me? That's a big question, and I think it gets tossed around a lot of times in ways that are maybe not the most constructive in the long term. Like, we talk about environmental sustainability, which is really important, but we also have to talk about economic sustainability, because if this is a thing that you're investing so much more energy into and you're just not getting the return that you're hoping for out of it, you're gonna come to resent it over time, and it's gonna hamstring your ability to grow with it. So do some thinking. Think about like how much money would make you feel valued as a performer. How much money would feel like the time spent on it is worth it. And then determine how much time you're going to be spending actually performing per week. And be realistic about this, because you're not going to get many gigs that are more than an hour or two long. And once you have both of those pieces, then you have some idea of what you ought to be charging for those performances. And of course, that opens up a whole big can of worms, because the next question that most people ask is, well, am I really worth that? And the answer I would give you is kind of twofold. The first answer is, if you're not now, you can become worth that. And number two, you really have to think about it less in terms of what am I worth, and more in terms of what is the service that I'm offering worth. So this is where it helps to kind of shift your thinking just a little bit, because I think a lot of us think of performances as being something that is artistically based, and it is that, but it is also a product. It is a product that you are offering to a client. And, you know, quite frankly, if you're going to be charging a certain amount of money for that product, then you have to be able to justify to the client why it's worth their while to pay you that much. What is it that makes your product unique? What is it that makes it worthwhile? If you can't answer those questions, then 9 times out of 10, neither can the client. And this is especially important if you happen to be working in an area where there are a lot of other artists performing. What makes you different from the rest of them? What makes you stand out? Do you have a particular skill that you use? A particularly polished act? Do you offer up something that nobody else does? Or are you just like that engaging a performer? Like, seriously, what is the core of what you're offering? And of course, once you've answered all those questions, it's time to go down the rabbit hole of learning marketing and everything. You're going to need business cards, you're going to need a website, etc., etc., etc. And I'm not going to go too deeply into that right now, because number one, there are a ton of awesome resources out there already on how to do it. Just do like a Google or YouTube search, and you're sure to find a lot of stuff. Off the top of my head, I would recommend checking out Ken Hill's channel. He talks a lot about the stuff and the work that he does as a performer on the back end, as well as the Facebook group Business for Flow Artists, which is primarily filled with people that are in the performance world, sometimes to my great frustration. But if you have specific questions about assembling these pieces for your business, there will be people that can answer those questions in that group. So when it comes right down to it, my answer as to when you're ready to perform, when you're ready to go on stage, when you're ready to get paid for what you're doing, is twofold. It is when you're ready to make the experience about the audience, and when you're ready to start thinking about yourself as an entrepreneur and asking yourself the questions that you need to in order to get started on that. I know it's not necessarily the answer that people were expecting, but I would say that that is the best answer that I can give on this topic. And also, just as a quick note, investing in a book like, say, Small Business for Dummies to get you started on the process of figuring out accounting and everything would be a really good investment. Again, I know it's not the sexy answer for this, but it will save you a lot of frustration in the long term the sooner you start making your brain work in this world. Cool, so other people out there that are performers, I can imagine y'all have a lot to say. I'm very, very curious to see how much people are going to agree with what I'm saying here, and how much they're going to be like, oh no, you're not talking enough about like the soul of performance and everything, which, to be fair, I didn't talk very much about it. So let me know down in the comments, what did you think about my answer to this question, and how might you have answered it differently? I look forward to finding out from some other professionals out there. If you dug this video and you'd like to see more like it in the future, please hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell. The reason for this is that YouTube is constantly changing its discovery algorithm, which means that the journey between me creating my videos and getting them to your eyeballs is always a challenge, and I'm constantly having to learn new things in order to get them to you, with one exception. If you hit that notification bell, it cuts through all the changes in the algorithm and it just delivers my videos straight to you, which makes my life easier. So if you want to make my life easier in that regard and make sure that you check out all my videos in the future, please hit that notification bell. It does make a difference. And of course, I just want to put out an enormous thank you to my wonderful supporters on Patreon. They are the reason that this video and all the videos on my channel exist. If you would like to sign up to support the work that I do, please head on over to patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi and sign sign up, you get access to all of my content early before the rest of the world does, as well as getting to vote on topics that I tackle in future videos. So it is actually a really great deal and you should check it out. Thanks in advance.